The answer is right in front of them. Pay a living wage. That's the answer. It may not solve everything, but it's going to unlock big weight to address the small things.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Brody Shaffer is a union worker at Nexstar who has been wrongfully terminated, and Zane Farr is a worker in the Communication Workers of America's research department. Brody, Zane, welcome to the Valley Labor Report.
Thank you for having me.
We really appreciate y'all taking the time. We wanted to bring you on to talk to us about the organizing campaign going on at Nexstar. Nexstar, for those of you who do not know, is a local TV news station conglomerate. We are on several radio stations across the South, and there are multiple Nexstar TV stations in our listening area, including WHNT in North Alabama, WGNO in New Orleans, and WTVC in Chattanooga. And, lots of people don't really realize that their local TV news stations are part of a national multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. And Nexstar in particular, as your recent report, Making Ends Meet at Nexstar, demonstrates, is particularly bad about exploiting their workforce, paying them lower than industry standard wages and bringing in higher than industry standard profits. I mean, it really is sort of a direct, you can see the money being sucked out of the workers and going into the pockets of the executives sort of situation here. And so we wanted to talk to you about that. And I'm hearing an echo in the background. I'm not sure what's going on there or where that is coming from. Okay. I think we got it now. Okay, thanks. Appreciate that. So we wanted to get y'all on to talk about that. And to let people in on this news story that's happening at their news station in their local communities. So, I'll hand it to you, Brody. Is there anything else that I've kind of left out as a primer to bringing people into the conversation and letting them know what Nexstar is?
So first of all, thanks for the question. So Nexstar is really like you said, it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation. It's the largest broadcast company in the United States. And what people should really understand is that with that, you would think that like your local newsrooms, you'd think that they would be well supported, well funded, well taken care of, and that it would kind of be a staple for people wanting to join in our industry. And it's actually quite the contrary. It's kind of like once you join, you kind of learn that it's really profits over people. And that's a problem within journalism and really broadcasting as a whole, because from my point of view and some of my colleagues' point of view, it's been that broadcasting is a people business for people by people. And so whenever people that are making the product are not being considered just kind of a afterthought in the operational aspect, that's pretty much kind of a shocking thing. So that's what I think the general public should know when it comes to Nexstar, is that they're not just the largest broadcast company in the United States, but that they actually have the power to kind of set the standard about operational means through the rest of the industry.
That's exactly right, and that's what the CWA's report. Again, I really encourage folks to check it out, because we're not going to be able to get into all of it. The title of the report is "Breaking the Story: The Real Cost of Low Wages at America's Largest Broadcaster." If you Google that, I'm sure the report will come up. Zane, you're in the CWA's research department. The CWA is the Communication Workers of America. It's a large international union representing workers in the United States and Canada, and one of its departments is NABET, the National Association of Broadcast Engineer. What's BET? National Association of Broadcast Employees. I don't know. Tell me what NABET stands for, Zane.
CWA represents like a variety of different occupations, one of them being the broadcast engineers. Primarily like NABET members, like their biggest groups are at ABC and NBC, but we also represent a lot of local broadcast stations across the United States, and Nexstar being the largest broadcast chain. So we have hundreds of members at Nexstar. Once the workers started organizing at a few of the unrepresented shops to obtain union representation, this really caught our attention, because especially like how Nexstar's low wages have been dragging down standards across the industry. As the report shows, they're paid like below industry standards, like well below industry standards, and then sometimes not even like living wages for the areas that they live in. So.
Yeah, it's shocking. NABET stands for National Association of Broadcast Employees and Technicians, and so there are hundreds of folks in NABET across the local TV industry. Many of them at Nexstar, where workers at Nexstar stations are organizing. And so, Zane, give us sort of the top lines of this report. What were your findings about how Nexstar, this huge multi-billion-dollar corporation, treats its employees?
So we did a survey like across all of our represented units, and to get a representative sample, and we focus primarily on wages, not as much on benefits, but focused on like working conditions and like how this impacts and the workers. And one of the things that really stood out is like when you do these, like we've done these like these poverty pay reports on like low wages and kind of like niche industries before, and in broadcast there's kind of like a requirement for to even get the job, you typically need like some kind of like advanced training or long tenure within the industry to build up a skill set. And how even like at Nexstar, like despite like the low wages, there's the workers actually have quite long tenure, and oftentimes bachelor's degrees, like in broadcast communications. And that despite all that, they're still understaffed. They're still overworked. Many people aren't being backfilled in like a lot of these stations, which leads to like a pretty stressful working environment. And when Nexstar takes over stations, as they're trying to do with this Tegna merger, you can see how like when the executives talk about it, they talk about like synergies being derived out of a merger, and what are synergies are usually job losses, and especially when there's a Nexstar and a Tegna station in the same market. They try to combine a lot of these services, and to the extent they combine them, that just means more understaffing, and trying to get more work out of like one group of production employees to service two stations. So.
Yeah, and I just want to give the audience some of these numbers here. The majority of Nexstar workers earn less than a living wage for their metro area. 62% for a single person without children, right? I mean, a living wage to be on your own is like not that high. 89% earn less than a living wage for their metro area for a single person with one child. A majority, 63% of workers rely on family, friends, or public assistance to get by. A majority of survey respondents feel financially insecure. The majority of survey respondents report delaying necessary medical care, 55%. And so those wages look like an average wage for a director or producer of $20 an hour compared to a median industry hourly rate of $30 an hour, a $22 an hour average hourly rate for anchors and reporters at Nexstar compared to a median industry hourly rate of $31 an hour. For a studio technician, Nexstar's hourly rate is $22 an hour compared to the median industry hourly rate of $23 an hour. And for an engineer, Nexstar's average hourly rate is $27 an hour compared to the median industry hourly rate of $37 an hour. And so you're looking at pretty consistently, well, in all of these places, Nexstar is paying less than the industry average. And pretty consistently, you're seeing like 10, 15, 20, 30% less than the industry average. And so these are not small. And Zane, I mean, Nexstar is making huge profits off of that, right?
Yeah. So the way the television station industry works, is they get that money from two sources, advertising, which, is a lot of like political advertising, especially after Citizens United, and distribution revenues. So if Comcast or Spectrum want to run the local television stations on their network, they got to pay the local television station. So that's where half the revenue comes from. And so what Nexstar did is this giant roll-up strategy that started in like the late 1990s. The current CEO and chairman, Perry Sook, started this company with a lot of private equity backing, and just started buying up these stations to kind of get market leverage. There's power in numbers. They have a lot more bargaining power. That probably sounds really familiar to you and a lot of listeners. And they were able to extract even bigger fees and even lower retransmission rates on their content. And it's been this broadcasting powerhouse for years, and they've been able to consistently buy even larger chains and add on to, now they are at the maximum they're allowed to be under current law. So, yeah.
And
it's brought them a lot of profit.
Yes, that huge profit, or that huge presence, and really, starting to take on a monopoly-like character has, like you said, given them huge profits. And I want to give the audience those numbers. They get a 23% operating margin in 2024. They got a 23.5% operating margin in 2024 on revenue of $5.4 billion. In the last 2 years, Nexstar paid out $410 million in dividends, spent $1.2 billion on stock buybacks, and Nexstar is more profitable than its peers in the television broadcast industry, having a nearly double operating margin compared to Gray Media, which is the next largest. Gray Media only has an 11% operating margin. Scripps, which is another large player in the industry, only has a 5% operating margin. Their CEO had a total compensation last year of nearly $36 million. The ratio of his compensation to Nexstar's median employee is 517 to 1. I mean, this is, we've got all of the stuff here for a really like kind of archetypically evil sort of corporation. We've got low wages, we've got monopoly roll up of the industry, and we've got a huge compensation ratio between the median employee and the CEO. And so, Brody, I'm curious, and I want to talk about your firing for organizing, but before you were fired, and I'm sure you've maintained communication with your coworkers, how does all of this sit with the people who have to come into work every day and make all of this money for, CEO Perry Sook and all the other shareholders while they're getting paid below living wages in their areas? I mean, like $20 an hour in New York is the median wage at that station. It's crazy. How do people receive that, Brody?
Well, thank you for the question. Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Anybody who hears $20 an hour in New York City, now you can only imagine what it's like at the rest of the markets across the country. I can tell you from the workers, what it feels like is they feel like they don't matter. They aren't being heard. And that ratio, that 517 to 1, a great example that I was given about that was I would have to work 517 years to equal the pay for the CEO and that he made in 1 year. And so that kind of disproportion, whenever a lot of our workers, they are struggling to just pay a single bill or make do with whatever it's automotive transportation to get to work, whenever they're spending more money on food to keep their bellies full while they're at work, or if they're having to rely on potlucks that are being brought in, or they're having to do work 2, 3 jobs just to be able to get by. This is not normal. This is not okay. What our coworkers are feeling when, and I'm in contact with them all the time. And the number one thing that my concern is that they're being cared about, and that is something that just isn't present. It is not about having a pizza party, or it's not about having the occasional, here's a freebie from work. These are all bonuses, but the real problem is that they are doing so much work, so much is expected of them, more and more and more. And the problems whenever they're asked, well, what can we do better? And they're like, well, we need more money. And the answer is, well, we need anything that's not money. Well, what else can they ask for? And whenever that's the main pay point. Where I work is where I was work, we're in the Evansville metro area. That's in Evansville, Indiana, southwestern Indiana. But the station is in Henderson, Kentucky, in western Kentucky. And we serve the Evansville metro area. And one big problem there is energy costs. So you may look at a housing cost or something, but our electric bills are through the roof. And the problem that we've had is we've had people that have gone and talked to their direct supervisors on up to general managers, and even echoed it in collective letters to management outside the station, and have communicated that we need more money to be able to afford these bills, because one bill has displaced people from their home when it comes to if they rent. And the idea and the response that they have gotten is, well, you can reach out for, the company has grants and things like that, and we can help you with all of that. But the problem is the answer is right in front of them, and they've heard it time and time again, and is pay people a living wage, bar none. That's the answer. It may not solve everything, but it's like a key to a lock. It's going to unlock the big weight to address the small things per station that people feel. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I mean that is just a wild sort of thing to say, like, oh, we'll change anything about your job except the main thing about having a job. I mean, that's the whole reason that I go to work is to make money. And you're telling me that's off the negotiation table? I mean, that's just totally ridiculous.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
It's just such a crazy sort of thing that it's almost difficult to know kind of to know what to say about it. And so, I hope that folks are hearing this, and especially if you work at Nexstar, I hope that you'll be getting in touch with the CWA to join the campaign to build a better Nexstar. You can email the organizer for NABET at bdunau@cwa-union.org. You can email her if you work at a Nexstar or any TV station and you want to organize your workplace. You can also go to nabetcwa.org/organize-join-our-union. So do that if you are working at one of these local TV stations. We're talking right now to Brody Shaffer, a union worker at Nexstar, who has been wrongfully terminated, and Zane Farr, a worker in the Communication Workers of America's research department. Brody, the report doesn't touch on this too much, but you kind of touched on it a little bit there in your answer. Does do these low wages and the poor working conditions, does that affect a station's ability to do good journalism for their community?
100%. Absolutely. Because at a certain point, you have people who they're expected to do more. There's expected standard, and it seems that the everything around them is expected more and more and more and more and more, but they keep getting less and less and less of either recognition, reward, or any of that. There's something in the broadcast industry where it's understood that you start off in maybe a smaller market and you move markets, and that's how you make more money, and so on and so forth. And that's not necessarily just akin to broadcasting. But the part of it is that when we continue to reduce the wage for these jobs across the country for a new reporter, for a weekend anchor, for a morning anchor, or a photographer, a producer, when we continue to reduce the wage or stagnate the wage, then of course the station's going to suffer in the quality of that journalism, because at the end of the day, when people don't feel that they're being rewarded fairly and justly, they're going to kind of just disconnect and do the bare minimum. And so you're going to get less of better journalism out of that story. And it's not that these people aren't committed to that, but they're going to be looking for the door to go somewhere else to be better. And it could be leaving these communities. And whenever they leave our communities, that hurts the communities at large that all these stations serve, because there's plenty of news that the people need to be hearing about. There are plenty of stories that people need to know about. But when you have talented people who come in and are blatantly disrespected financially for their role, in some cases, it could be how young they are, how old they are, their sex, any of that. When you have these things that are a fundamental problem, and it's shared across the company, and even people who used to work at Nexstar feel this, then the quality of the product goes down, 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 and the entry level expectation to a point where we may even not hire somebody that has we may hire somebody that doesn't have a degree. And then you're training people on the job. And what a degree says in broadcasting is that you understand FCC regulations, you understand the basics of reporting, and that you understand how to show both sides. It all comes back to not just pay, but also comes back to the fact that when the quality of care to workers goes down, you can't be surprised when the quality of the product does too.
Zane, this is all happening, as you alluded to earlier in the conversation, at the same time that Nexstar, which is the same company that pulled Jimmy Kimmel off of the air for some amount of time, I believe, because of his joke on the air, which is, kind of funny that we're talking about that in the aftermath of them being talking about them in the aftermath of them being in the center of the news for some amount of time. This is happening at the same time that Nexstar is trying to bring in even more profits by even more acquisition, and they're seeking a special dispensation from the Trump administration to do that. How, explain what the rules are around rolling up, broadcast TV, and what they're asking the Trump administration for.
So that's a good question. Over the years, the FCC has had it's had regulations related to how much of a market a broadcaster can dominate, like both like the local markets and then for the whole country. And then, over the years, as many industries have been deregulated, like broadcast is no different. And so these rules have been weakened, slowly chiseling away at this. And now they have an FCC chairman, Brandon Carr, who is, has a docket open to deregulate the broadcast and communications industry even more. Right now, Nexstar has the maximum that is legally allowed to own, which is 39% of the covering 39% of the country. It's actually a little bit more than that because there's some UHF loopholes that they can use. That's rather technical. We don't need to get into, but it actually covers a whole lot more than that. Now they made the offer to buy Tegna, which is one of the top 4 broadcasters, and it's going to allow them to have up to 265 full power stations in 44 states and District of Columbia, and it's going to cover about 80% of the population. And in order to do this, they need to get rid of the rule that restricts them to the 39%. So like this would be a pretty dramatic change. The industry says they need to do this because they need to compete with streaming. I think that it's hard to make it's hard to make the claim that Nexstar is suffering. Like as you said at the top of the segment, that they have nearly 24% operating profit margins. It's a quite healthy company, as it currently stands. But healthy is never enough. They always need more. So like I said, they were going to use like this power they have to extract even more profits. But what this ultimately means for the broadcast journalism industry is, not only are they extracting more profits, but they're exercising their enormous power over our media, our media markets, our landscape for the politics. It can be quite dramatic. And I think, as you said, like the Jimmy Kimmel thing was one thing where, they said they didn't like a comment that he made on air, and they told ABC that they wanted him off, and the FCC even leaned on ABC too, because ABC is also looking at mergers. I mean, it's like when all the power is based within like a couple companies, they can abuse it, and why wouldn't you expect them to? So.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Brendan Carr really is something at the FCC, and the FTC's shift from Lena Khan to now is so clear, and it's all just sort of, I mean, mafia boss stuff is what's going on, and so very concerning. Nexstar can and should be paying their workers, and workers are trying to organize, and that is really going to be the key thing and going to be the key deciding factor about whether or not Nexstar starts treating their employees well is, do the employees demand to be treated well? And do they join this campaign with NABET CWA? We've got the contact information up on the screen now for the email address for the national campaign coordinator for this campaign. Also have the website link up on the screen that you can check. It's Dunau, BDUNAU at cwa-union.org and nabetcwa.org/organize-join-our union. So workers are organizing, but Nexstar is trying to tamp down. Brody, what does that look like on the ground, and how are workers fighting back?
So put it blatantly, it's a pretty classic case of union busting. There's no and, if, or but about it. I mean, when they try to tell you that you're breaking rules by talking union in shop or on the clock, and when there's no policy that says we can't talk about anything that isn't work related. When they pull you into meetings one-on-one, they just say, hey, pop in really quick. I want to talk to you. And they shut the door, and they try to use intimidation tactics, and they use corporate lingo that I just want to check the temperature, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. When they pull everybody in for an all-staff meeting or group meeting separated by shift to play you a video that is about how unions work, air quotes, because it's, anti-unioning and encouraging them not to unionize, that they say, well, there's no purpose for a union. Unions don't really work. They say all of these things. That's what it looks like on the ground. And it also looks like violating workers' rights, whether it's from top down on the local level, when workers invoke their Weingarten rights for representation. We've been hit with, you guys don't have a contract, so you don't have those rights. And that's not what the law says. These rights to representation are regardless of a contract. And you need to be able to have that representation. And when you inform them of that, they act as if an excuse is, well, I don't actually know what Weingarten's rights are, so I don't care. And what's bad is that this hurts our direct supervisors. The problem is that we've heard many times, like they will say, it's all about money, it's all about money. I can promise you it is not, because these workers are also looking for respect, and they're looking for decent care and recognition, and not having their schedules change every single day at a moment's notice. They are not looking to have their time off be criticized at an exorbitant level whenever they need to take some time. They are looking at being able to not have that time off be canceled willy-nilly because they didn't plan ahead. The managers didn't plan ahead to have people take off work, and they needed to move the schedule around. So what it looks like on the ground is the managers making the workers seem as if that they are doing the wrong way to try and change the company culture. But the problem is workers have been voicing what needs to change the entire time. And the company is they're not listening, they are ignoring. And that is a bigger disrespect than anything else. There's nothing worse than being ignored when it comes to actually trying to constructively build and grow your workplace. And our workers, we care about the product, we care about our jobs, and we actually care about the company. But ever since we've unionized, suddenly we don't care about the company. All we care about is money. All we care about is ourselves. And that is the furthest thing from the truth.
Brody Shaffer, a worker who has been unlawfully fired at Nexstar. Zane Farr is a worker in the union's research department. Brody, Zane, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us on the Valley Labor Report today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
That's it for that segment, folks. Definitely, if you work in local news, you need to organize. I talked to somebody who worked at a local news station here who came from a union local news station, and they talked to me about how here they had to literally do twice the work for like 30% the pay. It wasn't a Nexstar station, but generally I'm constantly constantly dismayed at how little people make in TV news, in local TV news, because the money is there to pay people good money, pay people living wages. And these companies are not doing it, and they're trying to roll up the industry and throw money in the pockets of these fat cats. It's not right. So,
yeah, and you see a ton of turnover as a result.
Yes, you see a ton of turnover as a result. And this is not, and I want to be very careful about how I say this. This is not an attack on the reporters. This is just stating the facts. When you have such high turnover and when you have such low wages, what you end up getting is entry-level people in most of the positions who don't know anything. Like, they just don't know anything. I have had to talk to reporters and explain what a union is to them. Like, they had no idea what it means to be a union, what that and so when they're reporting on these things, obviously they mess up things. They don't know the law, they don't know the facts of the case, and they don't know the context. And there's so much value that is really impossible to kind of quantify in a monetary in a monetary way. There's so much value in having a person doing reporting who has lived in the community for decades and knows the community and like knows what's up, knows the people, knows the power players and what's happening behind the scenes. And you can't do that if you're 22 years old and you just got a degree and you're just starting on the job and you're like the most senior reporter after 6 months on the job. You know, I mean, the quality declines necessarily. Not as a result of, you know, the reporters are bad or like they don't care about their job, but just because they don't have the longevity to know.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.